Inbound on the Eisenhower, scattered slowdown start at Mannheim. Trip time is 35 minutes from 390 to downtown. Inbound Kennedy, it's heavy starting around Cumberland, 24 minutes O'Hare to downtown, outbound 21. Inbound Stevenson is a 32-minute drive, 355 to Lakeshore Drive. Ryan is 18 minutes from 95th to downtown. Northbound Tri-State, just a bit congested, approaching the Ike. That's traffic. I'm Jim Palamonte. On AM 560, The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Your official Chicagoland weather forecast. Sunny, highs near 94 inland today, while near 90 close to the lake. 73 at O'Hare. Next news coming up at 8. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by HealthQuest Radio with Dr. David Kobaba. Every Saturday morning at 11, right here on AM 560, The Answer.
If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion.
And Amy, and again on Steve Hilton's show on Sunday evening on Fox, President Trump was asked about his second term. What's top of the list of agenda items? And he said this.
But what do you want to get done if you're re-elected in the next 4 years that you weren't able to do in the first?
I'd love to see school choice education-wise. It takes care of itself. It's the ultimate thing. I believe you're a fan of school choice, but
very much
the Democrats are totally not.
Well, most importantly, parents are.
Well,
they know
the parents
it's better
are.
for their children.
The parents are. And so school choice is one thing. Education is very simple. School choice. And let the parent go and decide.
Yeah, imagine that. And school choice is not just about, sort of better schools, but better fits. There are a lot of good colleges and universities. Not every one is as good a fit as every other one for a particular student. But parents and the student, particularly as that student gets older, can figure that out. And the other thing you see in a competitive model, of course, is that the more successful models in terms of producing results tend to be replicated and scaled. And so, for example, one school could be particularly proficient at teaching children who have special needs, who have learning disabilities, and that could be extended. This is what the McKay Scholarship Program did in Florida. And another school could be vocational. And it shouldn't be your neighborhood, your address, or your household income shouldn't determine whether you can access these various schools. By the way, some schools may still be back teaching foreign languages at mainly the high school level, like the Chicago public school system.
Which is so idiotic. They should do it in first, second, third, and fourth grade.
Even though we've known that for 30 years.
Fluent.
Even though we've known for the same period of time, as I want to say, that kids best learn science at the high school level in the following order. A physical science class first, then chemistry, then biology. But yet, in these command control government school systems, the first science class taught is normally biology for high school freshmen. So, in other words, rethinking how you do education all the way around to implement best practices, to borrow from those who are showing success with particular students that have particular challenges or particular abilities across the spectrum. This seems like an opportune time to have this conversation, which is why it's an opportune time to talk about this book authored by Sanjay Sarma, just released last week, Grasp, the Science Transforming How We Learn. Sanjay Sarma is the head of open learning at MIT and the co-author of this book. Sanjay, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
My great pleasure.
So with respect to the experience that families and students had with remote learning in the spring, which according to some of the studies that looked into it, like one from Brown University, another from Washington University in Washington State, IHME Institute, was not particularly effective in terms of progressing the intellectual development of the students. And many schools are pursuing the same thing here again in the fall. What should we be thinking about? What should parents be pushing, even if it's going to be a remote learning environment?
Look, we're caught between two worlds, neither of which is optimal. We're caught between in-person teaching, which is fairly socially distanced to begin with, right? Students are not necessarily engaged in projects. They don't apply what they learn. It's a little bit still old-fashioned. It's like a freight train approach where students have to drink from a fire hose and we judge them at the end to see how well they did, rather than really being student-centric. That's the pre-COVID, in-class world. And if you want to do online, Khan Academy, 3 blue, 1 brown. These guys know how to do online. They've done a fantastic job. By Heart, Minute Physics, really fantastic. Right now, in the COVID world, we've stuck these kids in front of Zoom. 2 things have happened. One, we're seeing that the students are, the parents have to deal with the students' distractions, so they're actually seeing it. And second, what little social pressure classrooms exerted is gone. So really what we need to do post-COVID is go back and re-examine what we want to do in education. Make it more cognitively friendly, make it less of a fire hose, focus on true learning,
No, I do. I think that's right. I'm want to quote William Blake: "Education is not the." Or am I right? Maybe I'm misquoting. Was it Blake or was it? No, I got that wrong. But anyway, the idea that education is not the not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire, and that's sort of what you get to in your book as well. This is about. I think the one quote I saw from you, the metaphor you use is it's like a plant growing. And so, that plant needs to be tended to holistically.
That's right. I mean, look, I think that quote, by the way, goes back all the way to Plato. But the basic idea, or maybe to Plutarch, one of them, the basic idea here is that a student is building a model of the world, right? So, for example, when they learn math, they're connecting to some experience they had that morning where they watched mom, do something in accounting or something. Maybe she's an accountant. And by the way, if mom is not an accountant but a seamstress, they might not have that experience. So what we do, unfortunately, is put everyone on the same one-size-fits-all regimen. And that regimen leaves very little margin for error. And so the student, if they fall off the train, they fall off the train. I'm mixing my metaphors here, right? Now, the way to do online is to have very well-produced online content like Sal Khan, others like that, 3 blue, 1 brown, where the students can consume stuff. But to make it likely that they're going to consume it, you have to make them curious. And it turns out curiosity is sort of an emotion that generates dopamine. The brain wants to eat food. It's like saliva, right? Eat knowledge. And once you make the student curious, they'll consume it online. But then the important part comes in, which is apply it, integrate it, get coached, get your misunderstandings clarified, work with the other students to see how they see it. And so what we've done right now in the classroom is it's socially distanced to begin with because, frankly, and the U.S. is, by the way, not so bad. Other countries even worse. The students are just sitting passively. And, you're throwing stuff at them. Yeah, and then in the end, we have a high-stakes exam and declare victory.
Yeah, but the problem is in certain districts like Chicago Public School District, there's thousands of kids who are lost that they can't even find to give computers to. So in-person learning in that case would be better, obviously, than no learning at all.
Without a doubt. So the problem, in my view, that's actually a very important point. The problem with online learning is we're doing it sort of in an offhand way. I mean, the kids who go to Khan Academy are the kids who have access, so parents tell them about Khan Academy. And that's the real iniquity, right? So to me, personally, addressing that fundamental inequity is where we need to go if we want to change the education system around, on the one hand, and then, change the classroom. To your point, that is not an easy task, and that's why education reform is so difficult. But we do have this new affordance, and if we want to take it on, we will have to figure out how to make these affordances available equitably.
It's not a resource issue. That's a teachers union excuse for operating a terrible school district. There's more than enough money to get a MacBook for every fracking school in CPS. So, I mean, spare me the histrionics. I'm so tired of listening to $25,000 a year, which is half of what similarly situated private schools serving the same underserved population can educate kids for. We don't have to do anything because we can't figure out how to spend money to get people MacBooks or PCs. It's completely ridiculous. I'm over all of the excuses from all the institutional powers that have failed for 50 years. It's a joke. And I'll tell you what, this is the time, I agree with you, Sanjay, to completely rethink this. Even with distance learning and even with Khan Academy, it's interesting you bring up Khan Academy because there's a model that can be replicated. And one of the other things that's interesting about that, same thing with TED Talks, although they tend to be a little longer. But you mentioned sort of concentrated instruction. So make it 10 or 15 or 20 minutes, like the old saying about no good speech goes longer than 20 minutes. Make it concentrated so that it prompts some action, so that it doesn't tolerate passivity for 45 minutes or 90 minutes. Make it something that prompts action, whether in collaboration or just on your own, and do shorter bursts of information that's thought-provoking.
Yeah, there's a lot of science that shows that. It has to do with the way the brain architecture works, the way we absorb information, the prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus. Anyway, so the bottom line is that it turns out 5 to 10 minute bursts, if they're well scripted, are very effective. And then what you want to do at the end of that is take a break and give the students ways to think about it, ask them questions about it, engage with it. How would you use that information? The 45-minute lecture is absolutely designed to induce passivity, which most parents are now seeing for the first time and having to struggle with, without a doubt.
What about, and by the way, I was thinking before it was Yeats, and now I'm going to have to shepherdize it all the way back to Plutarch, that education is not the filling of a pail, it's the lighting of a fire. So now you've given me a homework assignment. But anyway, I digress. So what about the school day? The school day, this whole idea of it's like 8:30 or 9 o'clock to 2 o'clock. That was something that was a development of the Truman era, where you had mom at home waiting for the kids to get home for tomato soup and grilled cheese at 2 o'clock. That's not really American society today. So, and we also know from research that children actually tend to learn better if they start a little bit later in the day. And I wonder if that should be part of the conversation as well.
Yeah, but it's such an interconnected system. But yes, correct. I mean, there's the research definitely that shows that starting later, especially in the teenage years, is better. But then there are other issues too. Let's say that your child really gets passionate about something, which happened to mine as well, actually, and she wanted to stay in school for a few hours because she wanted to do a project. Well, how did she get home? So certainly I think that on that front as well, you need to figure out how to adapt to the child. Basically, look, the system we design is convenient for adults, right? It's convenient for our work. But if we want to transform these young people to become the CEOs of their own lives, which in the gig economy they're going to have to do, then we have to focus on a transformative agenda for the kids rather than something that just works conveniently for us.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary statement. He is Sanjay Sarma. He's the head of open learning at MIT, the author of the just-released book, Grasp, The Science Transforming How We Learn. Sanjay, thanks so much for joining us, and good luck with the book.
Thanks a lot, folks. Take care.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's news, opinion, insight. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
My wife and I have had this conversation 700 times. Honey, where would you like to go for dinner? Oh, I don't care. Whatever you think. Okay, how about Restaurant 1? Oh, no, definitely not Restaurant 1. How about Restaurant 2 instead? Oh, please don't ever make me go back to Restaurant 2. And it soon becomes clear that we need a restaurant